Well, the US equity markets rose to record highs. However, the US yield also still remained fairly firm at 1.6% after the US Fed stated that they remain committed for a near zero interest rates outlook through 2023. In fact, having said that, they've gone ahead and upgraded the economic outlook. They have upgraded the projections for the GDP as well as their projections on the inflation expectations. US Fed expects benchmark interest rates to remain near zero for the next 2 years. The central bank also upgraded the GDP outlook to 6.5% in 2021 before they see it slightly slowing down. Expectations for the core inflation also have moved higher, with the US Fed now seeing core inflation at 2.2% this year, just 2021, as measured by the personal consumption expenditures. We did see the 10-year yield come off slightly from the high. However, it did rise to slightly around 2 bips to 1.64%. Dow Jones was up 0.58% to close at 33,015, while the Nasdaq was up 0.4% to close at 13,525. The S&P also closed with marginal gains by 0.3%, which is a gain of nearly around 0.3% at 3974. In terms of the European markets, we are seeing that the European stocks did fall slightly, with most investors being on the sidelines ahead of the US Federal Reserve policy decision. The Pan-European stock 600 did fall 0.5%, trading below a one-year peak, with the utilities and basic resources sectors leading the declines. BMW rose 6.2% after its forecast a significant annual increase in pre-tax profit in 2021, with a strong performance in almost all the segments. CAC was flat, while DAX was up 0.3% for the day, and FTSE ended the day down by 0.6%. In Asia, of course, the Asian stocks were on a fairly positive note, with the US futures on the Federal Reserve's projections for interest rates to remain near zero through 2023. In fact, if you look at the Asian stocks, the stocks in Japan as well as South Korea did rise, whilst Australian benchmark was fluctuating. Nikkei was up close to around 1.5%, while Kospi was up nearly around 1.2%. Australian stocks was down nearly around 0.3% in the early morning trade. In terms of the oil prices, well, they were little changed. WTI crude oil was little changed, with the International Energy Agency saying markets aren't on the verge of a new price super cycle. Brent crude was down by nearly around 0.9% to close at $67.79 per barrel. WTI futures were trading flat at $64.6 per barrel. If you look at the gold ended slightly down by 0.2% to close at $1727 an ounce, while the gold futures were up slightly by nearly around 1.3% to $1749 an ounce.